So in this video today, guys, I'm going to go over the study guide for the final exam, which is on Google Classroom. So the first problem says, a company responsible for making gumballs found that their gumballs had an average diameter of 2.21 centimeters and a standard deviation of 0.01 centimeters. A store is restocking their gumball machines. In order for the machine to work for the gumballs must be between 2.2 centimeters and 2.23 centimeters in diameter. If the store uses gumballs mentioned above, what percentage of the time will the machine work properly? Now this problem doesn't say to use the empirical rule, but on the test it'll tell you whether to use the empirical rule or a calculator. So we're going to do this with the empirical rule. Okay, so I'm going to draw a bell curve here. And hopefully you remember that if it says the average diameter is 2.21, that is the middle measure of our bell curve. Then it says our standard deviation is 0.01, so we're going to go add 0.01, so this would be 2.22 here. Keep adding 2.23, another one 2.24, and then we're going to subtract on this side, okay? So that's going to be 2.2, 2.19, 2.18. And if you recall, when we talk about our percentages in here, this is going to be 34% and 34%. And then the next one over is going to be 13.5 and 13.5. And then 2.35 and 2.35. And then the last one's 0.15 out here and 0.15. Okay, so now this problem says from 220 to 223, 2.220 to 2.23, so that is from here to here, right? So we're going to add the 34 plus the 34 plus the 13.5, and that gives us 81.5. Okay? So the next one says a parent logarithmic function is defined by p of x equals log of x. How could it graphically be transformed to create the graph of the following function? So this is t of x is equal to log of x plus 2 minus 4. So remember our h and k formula. So if we say log of x minus h plus k, remember h has to do with moving left and right. And in this case, our h will be equal to -2. And our k has to do with moving up and down. And we got a minus 4 here. So this means that our graph moves 2 left and 4 down, which is that choice right there. Okay. The next one says which of the below is an asymptote of the equation y equals 7 times 2 to the x power. So this is a growth function, and I know that because this right here is, if this is greater than 1, it's a growth function. If it's a fraction, it's a decay function. So I'm going to draw this for you, and I would recommend that you guys do this in Desmos when you're doing this problem. But I know also that if I put 0 in here for this, then that's going to be 1, so that's going to be 7 times 1. So when I put 0 in, which is right here, I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that's where I intersect, right there. And so my graph is going to be a growth function, so it's going to go like this, right? And again, you guys can put this in Desmos and see the graph. So then it asks what the asymptote is, right? So hopefully you remember that when we have a growth function, it's never ever going to go below the x-axis, right? So that's going to be our asymptote right there, which is the line y equals 0. So for any growth function, they're not going to go below 0, okay? Number 4 says find the approximate value of x that makes the following statement true. ln of x equals 6. So on this one, I'm going to write the problem ln of x equals 6. Well, hopefully you recall that the inverse of ln is e. So we can use this e to get rid of that ln, and that means we end up with the e over here. So what ultimately happens then is this goes away. So we have x equals e to the 6th, which was this one right here. The next one says simplify the logarithmic expression. So this one says 9 log base 9 of 8. And when we have out front the same thing that is as the base, they are going to cancel each other out. So that means these two cancel, or those things, 9 log base 9 cancels itself out. So we're left with the 8. So the answer here was 8. right, let's go to the next page. This one says which graph matches the equation of y equals log base 2 of x plus 3 plus 2. So here again, I'm going to do this in Desmos and look at the graph and determine which one looks like that equation. So when I did that, I found that this one was the graph. Now, the other thing you could do is put 0 in for x and 0 in for y and solve this. And that would show you that your x-intercept is here and your y-intercept is there. And that would also help you to solve what the answer is, okay? The next one says a person purchases a used Honda Civic for $6,500. The car is expected to decrease in value by 12% each year over the next several years. Which function model below best describes the value of the car t years after it was purchased? So on this one, what we want to look at is the equation would be, we're going to take our principal amount and we're going to multiply it times 1 minus the interest rate to the t power. And I know that it was minus because that word decrease. If the increase was there, we would do plus. Our principal is the $6,500. This is our rate of interest, right? And then it says next several years, so we don't know how many years, so t is going to be on our equation when we get done. So this is going to be 6,500. 1 minus 0.12. Remember, we got to change that into a decimal, so we're going to multiply or divide it by 100, okay? So this is going to be 6,500.88 to the t power, which is that one right there. Number 8 says both functions below are transformations of the parent function. Which comparison of the two functions is most accurate? Both functions are decreasing. Well, that's not true because both functions from moving from left to right are rising, so they would be increasing. It says both functions are translated right 2 units. Well, this one is translated right 2 units because notice it moved 2 over from there, but the next one isn't. Both functions have an x-intercept of 0. Well, again, this one has an x-intercept of 0, but this one has an x-intercept of 2. The one on the left has an x-intercept of 2. And then the next one says both functions have a domain and range of all real numbers. And that is a true statement. And the reason that is a true statement is because these are both cube root functions. And cube root functions are always going to have a domain and range of all real numbers. Number 9 says determine the domain and range of the function f of x equals log base 2 of x minus 3. So here again, if this were me, I would put this in the calculator in Desmos. I'm going to go ahead and graph this for y'all so you guys can see what it looks like. So on this one, when I graphed it, I noticed we had 5 points over here, and about at 4 it was crossing here, okay? And it had basically an asymptote. It didn't have this dashed line, but I noticed that when I looked at the graph, it went up from here and over there, okay? Remember, logarithmic graphs are always going to have vertical asymptotes, okay? So here again, what is our domain? I noticed that all my x values are what? X's are all greater than 3, because this was 3 right here. Y'all see that? Then our range, notice that when I look at the graph, it continues to go up and it continues to go down, so that's going to be all real numbers. So our domain is going to be x is greater than 3, and our range is all real numbers. Number 10 says find the end behavior for the following function. So on this one, again, if I didn't have the graph, I would be going and looking at the graph on Desmos. So as I move towards negative infinity here, where's the graph moving? Notice that it would be moving towards negative infinity here, right? Okay. So, and then as I move to the right, it looks to me like it's approaching maybe 5 or maybe more than that. But let's just look and see if we can find the answer with the first part. As we move towards negative infinity, positive infinity, no. As we move towards negative infinity, does it move towards 5? No. As we move towards negative infinity, does it move towards negative infinity? Well, this one looks like it might be it, but let's look at the last one. As we move towards negative infinity, does it move towards positive infinity? No. So by the process of elimination, C is going to be the answer. And what I did was I put this into Desmos and I looked way out on the x-axis, and that graph never did go past 5, so this is correct, okay? So question 11 says, what is the asymptote of the following function? So again, this time I'm going to put this again in the calculator, and I'm going to look at what does this function look like. Where am I at? I'm trying to find number 11 on my paper so I can draw the graph for y'all. Okay. So when I put this one in Desmos, I had a graph that looked basically 1, 2, 3. It was a little bit beyond 3 where it crossed. But it was going up like this and then over like that. So once again, and it kind of went up to like, this was 5 up here. We started turning. So again, when I'm looking at logs, y'all, they're going to have vertical asymptotes. So here again, if I'm looking at the graph, it's running right alongside this line right here, which is at 3. Okay, so that means that my vertical asymptote is going to be at b equals b, which is x is equal to 3. Okay. So on this next one, it says Justin and TJ are servers at a local restaurant. The table below shows the tips they earned. Which student has a lower mean tip for the week and by how much? So what we want to do is we want to add up the column, and then we want to divide, by the number of terms we have, which was 5, right? So when I did that here, I got 53.6, and for TJ, I got 46. So let's read these statements. Justin's mean tip was $7 less. Well, obviously Justin's tip was more than TJ's. Justin's mean tip was $6 less. No. Okay, so then we're basically looking at the next two. TJ's tip was 7 less or 6 less. So let's see what it is. So if we do 53.6 and we subtract 46 from that, that's going to be about 7, right, y'all? So yeah, it's going to be about 7. We can see it right there. Yeah, it's really going to be 7.6, but this is our answer, okay? We want to choose the most correct answer when we do these, okay? So 13 says, determine whether the following numerical values are parameters or statistics. So with this, you got to know the definition of parameter and statistics. So parameter is a population. A statistic is a part of the population, okay? So a company's employees, I guess a company surveys the employees and wants the opinion of those who were on time one morning about what they thought of a new training program. Some employees were late. So is this going to be a statistic or parameter, y'all? Yes, it's going to be a statistic because it was not everybody, okay? It was not the whole population. Number 14 says one of the events of the field day was the long jump. The length of 20 jumps are shown. If the mean is 6.6 centimeters and the standard deviation is 0.6, does the data appear to be normally distributed? So if it's normally distributed and we got 20 jumps, that means 10 are going to be below 6.6 and 10 are going to be above. So let's look, or at least close to that. So we got 5.4 there, 6.0, 5.5, 5.5. 6.4, 6.3. Those are all the ones that are below. So 6 were below, which means 14 were above. So is this data normally distributed? The answer is no. And the reason is because it's not close to half and half. Now, I need y'all to understand that if it was 9 and 11, that would be pretty close to 10. So on that one, it would be yes, okay, but not this one. So number 15 says, consider the following basic box and whisker plot. What is the lower quartile if the data set shown in the graph of the data set? Sorry. So here we go. This is 1, this is 3, this is 7, and this is 8, and this is 11. This is what? Our min here. This is Q1. This is the median. This is Q3, and this is our max, okay? So by looking at that, and you better know all of these, our lower quartile, which is Q1, was 3. Number 16 says solve the equation 2 to the 3x plus 1 power equals 128. So when we do this one, 3x plus 1 power equals 128. What I want to do is get the same base over here. So I want to have 2. So if I do 2 times 2, 4 times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32, times 2 is 64, times 2 is 128. So that's 2 to the 7th. and then this is 2 to the 3x plus 1. So when we do this, if they have the same base, we can just set the exponents equal to each other. So this is going to be 3x plus 1 equals 7. So we're going to subtract 1 from both sides. So this is 3x equals 6. And then divide both sides by 3. So our x equals 2. So the answer there is 2. The next one says find the interval of increase and decrease for the following function. So if we look at this function moving from left to right, so we're moving from negative infinity to infinity, right? So what's happening to this graph? Looks to me like it's only increasing. So obviously this wouldn't be the answer because it says not applicable for increase. That wouldn't be the answer. So the question is, where is it increasing from, and is it decreasing at all? It's not decreasing. So it's going to be B or C, and obviously it's increasing from negative infinity to positive infinity. Number 18, solve the logarithmic equation. So on this one, what we want to do is we want to take this and put it in exponential form. So we're going to take our base, which is 5, and then take it to the power, which is on the other side of the equal sign, and set it equal to what we're taking the log base of. So this is going to be 3x plus 9. So we are going to, we'll just do 25 here first, and 3x plus 9. We're going to subtract 9 from both sides. So this is going to be 16 equals 3x. Going to divide both sides by 3. So x is equal to 16 divided by 3, which is that answer right there. So rewrite the exponential equation as a logarithm. So this time we have our base. So our base is the x, so it's going to be log base x of what's on the other side of the equal sign, which is 26, and that's going to be equal to 3. So basically, we're just flipping the script here. So this answer was that one. Number 20, what is the domain and range of the function? So again, I'm going to put this in Desmos and show you guys what the graph would look like, or I'm going to actually show you the graph. So when I do this one, it's going to be negative 1, 2 over and 3 down. That's where this graph starts. So that's where the graph is going to look basically like that, okay? So when we're talking about our domain, notice all our x values are greater than or equal to negative 2. That was negative 2 right there, right? And this is negative 3. Our y values are greater than or equal to negative 3. And notice this is a negative 2 here, and this is a negative 3 there. Remember, the equation is x minus a minus 2, right? So which one of these is correct? That one right there. Number 21 says the times of the top 10 finishes in a race are listed below. So with this particular problem, what you guys want to do is you want to go to your calculator, you want to push stat, then you want to push 1, and you're going to get to where it's L1. Then you're going to put your data, all of these numbers, in the calculator, okay? That's what you're going to do. Once you've done that, then you're going to push stat again, and you're going to go to calc, and then you're going to push 1 again. Okay, so when you do this, you're going to get a list of numbers, and when it says x with a line over it, that's your mean. Your median is MED in the list. Now, what does mode mean? Mode means the number that's there the most, okay? So we've got a 31 there, a 31 there, and a 31 there. So the mode is going to be 31 because it's the number that's represented the most times in the data. When you're talking about the range, it's going to be your max minus your min, right? And then our standard deviation looks like this on that list, okay? Now, those of you that uploaded the calculator app, you should have this in there, right? So I'm trying to remember where my answers are. I think I put them on here. So this was 29.1. That was our x with the line over it. Median was 31. Mode was 31. Then we had the range, and again we're going to subtract. What I did for here was did 36 minus 2, which was 34. And then the standard deviation, which was this one, is 9.2244. Okay? All right, question 21 says, write the equation of the function graph below. So on this one, I want you guys to first see what the equation is of an absolute value, I mean a square root function. So that's what it would look like, okay? So if that's the original function, and so what we want to do is we want to look at what happened to this graph. Well, I can tell by looking at this graph it reflected across the x-axis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a function x, right? So I know that it did this, right? Because it's going left when it should be going right, okay? Then I want to look at this point right here, so that's going to be x. And that would be minus 1 because it's minus h, right? And then what is k? That's going to be minus 2. So when we look down here at these equations, if we simplify this, it's going to be minus x plus 1, isn't it? Minus 2. So that is this equation right there. And again, remember, h and k have to do with our x value is 1, right? And our k value is minus 2. 23 says, which sampling method will most likely lead to bias? If we were to talk about these, this is the most biased, and stratified is the least biased. Systematic would be second. Okay, so this is the most biased. And again, that's just because you just picked people that were easily available. We're going to talk about all these different sampling methods in a few minutes. So what is the domain and range of this next function? So once again, this is a growth function, right? So if I put 0 in here, that would be where this crosses the y-axis. Okay, so that's going to be at 2 right there. So once again, this is a growth function going to look like this. So when we're talking about our domain, those are our x values. That should be all real numbers, right? So our domain is going to be all real numbers. And then our range, notice all our values of y are what? Greater than 0. And that's always going to be true of growth functions. So that is our answer right there. Number 25 says, a product poll shows skateboards ahead of pogo sticks 52 to 48% with a margin of error plus or minus 6%. Does the poll accurately indicate which product is more popular? So when we do this, we're going to do 52 plus or minus 6. We're going to do 48 plus or minus 6. So when we do the first one, we're going to get 46 to 58%, right? And for the second one, so that would be like 46 is over here and 58 is over there, right? And then for the second one, I'm going to do it right here. That's going to be 42. So 42, well, actually, let's do it here. 42 is over here and 54 is there, right? So do you notice if I look at the endpoints of this data, so there's that one and there's this one. Do they overlap? They do overlap right here. Do you notice that? And because they overlap, this is not a conclusive. It's not accurate because they overlap, okay? So if they overlap, it's not accurate. If they do not overlap, it is accurate. So here's question 36 or 26. The SAT verbal scores are normally distributed with a mean of 450, standard deviation of 110, and it says determine what percent of the scores lie between 450 and 570. So this one I am going to use my calculator for. So I'm going to go to second, push the second button, and then the vars button, and then I'm going to do the normal and distribution, which is number 2. Okay, so if you guys are using the calculator that's online, that statistics calculator, then you don't need this. But if you're using your calculator, so you need the lower bound, which is going to be the 450. You need the upper bound, which is going to be the 570. Then you need mu, which is what? The mean. That's 450. And then you need the standard deviation, which is 110. Put these in the calculator, and this is your answer. Number 27 says, completely solve the following equation for x. So this one we're going to say x plus 2 equals the square root of 2x plus 12. So we're going to square both sides of this because we got to get rid of that square root, right? So when we do that, this cancels that. And so remember, if you don't remember how to do this, then you should do it like this and use the box method or FOIL to do that, okay? So this is going to end up being x squared plus 2x plus 2x plus 4, and that's going to be equal to 2x plus 12, okay? So we're going to combine some like terms over here, so we get x squared plus 4x plus 4, equals 2x plus 12. I'm going to subtract the 12 and I'm going to subtract the 2x. Okay, so that gives me x squared plus 2x minus 8. That equals 0. Now we need to factor this. So if we factor this, what are the factors of negative 8 that when added together give me a positive 2? So that's going to be x plus 4 and x minus 2. Set both of those equal to 0. So we're going to get that x equals negative 4 and x equals 2. And that is that answer right there. So the next one says, identify the following data set: the rates at which all the cashiers scan products for a store on a study about cashiers for the day. So is this a sample or not, or a population? This would be a population because it's everybody, right? Number 29 says, a science teacher recorded the pulse rates for each of the students in her classes after the students had climbed a set of stairs. She displayed the results by class using the box plots shown. It says, which class had the lowest Q1 in pulse rates after the climbing of the stairs? So that would be this leftmost side right here, right? So I'm going to go down and see if any of the other ones are smaller than that one. Nope. So that would have been class 1. Okay. You just got to know what each of those points are for a question like that. This one says, which of the following would represent the inverse of the function f of x equals the cube root of x minus 8? So when we do this, we're going to put y in first for f of x. And then all we're going to do is swap the x and y and solve for y. So we're going to put x in here, and we're going to put y in over here. How do we get rid of a cube root? We cube it, right? So this is going to be x to the third. Now this is canceled out, so we're left with y minus 8. So we would add 8 to both sides. So this is going to be x to the third plus 8 is equal to y, which is the same as the inverse. So it's going to be this one right here. Number 31 says, classify the sample. A school's college and career training counselor surveys the first 10 students she meets with on a Wednesday to see if they are planning to attend the next week's fair. This would be a convenient sample, and we're going to talk about these a little bit more in a minute, so don't worry about understanding what all of them are until we get there. It just was easy for her to do, and there was no other qualifications. This one says, use the change of base formula to approximate the following with your calculator. Log base 3 of 59,049. So when we do this, the change of base formula, I taught you guys that you keep the base in the basement, right? So we're going to say the log of 59,049 divided by the log of 3. And you better know this step for the test, okay? Question 3 says, the table below shows the number of rainy days for the past 6 months and the probability of a rainy day occurring. Find the expected value of the rainy day. So this right here is what we're looking for, okay, expected value. So the first thing I'm going to do is add up all these numbers of probability, and they did equal 1. So then what I do to solve this problem is I'm going to do 12 times 0.23 plus 5 times 0.06 plus 22 times 0.03 plus 14. Do y'all notice what I'm doing? Hopefully you see the pattern here. Plus, 9 times 0.17 plus 0 times 0.01. Now normally I would divide this by whatever that is, which is going to be 1. So when I do this, my answer ends up being 12.25. 34 says, determine the value of the account if the initial investment is $3,000 and the compounded continually at a rate of 6% after 7 years. So this is A equals P-E-R-T. So our P is going to be the 3,000. Our rate is going to be, this is going to end up being 0.06, right? Because we're going to change it to a percent or to a decimal. And then this is going to be our time. So when we do this, we're going to do 3,000. And we're going to multiply it times e to the 0.06 times 7 power. Okay? And when we do that and put it in the calculator, I'm pretty sure I got C. Let me look at my answers, y'all. 34, where's 34? Yep, it was C. All right, number 35 says expand the logarithm. Now this may be something you need to be refreshed on. So log base 3. I'm going to take the number 4. Remember, when it's being multiplied, I'm going to add it. And then I'm going to say the log base 3 of what? X squared. And remember, if something's being divided now, we're going to subtract it. So this is going to be log base 3 of y. Now there's one last step that we need to do to completely expand this, which is move this to the front. So this is going to be log base 3 of 4 plus 2 log base 3 of x minus log base 3 of y. So I'm pretty sure that's our first answer up here. Yep. On this next one, it says 2 different cable companies' basic channel lineup and number of customers are nearly identical, but the companies vary in their pricing based on location. Carter Cable charges customers a mean monthly price of $85 with a standard deviation of 15. AT&T Cable charges customers a mean monthly price of $85 with a standard deviation of 5. Which of the following statements is most likely to be true? So first it says Carter Cable is more consistent with its pricing. We're going to look at that one in a minute, but let's go on to the next one and see if we can basically narrow this down. On average, Carter Cable charges $10 more. Well, that's not true because they both charge the same. So we know this one's not true. And then down here, this one's not true either. On average, Carter Cable charges $10 less. They both charge the same. So what we want to find out is which one has the more consistent pricing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add and subtract the standard deviation 15 from 85. That's going to give me 70 to what? 100. And then AT&T Cable is more consistent with this pricing. So we want to say this subtract 5 from 80 and add 5. So that would be what? 80 to 90. So which one has the biggest variation, has the most consistent pricing? Obviously that would be AT&T, right? Because they got the smaller range. So this is the answer. Okay? 37 says, an up-and-coming rapper wanted to see what people who downloaded his last album thought about the songs. Which best represents the sample? So is it a selection of people who did not want to download the album? Every person who downloaded the album? 250 girls who downloaded the album? Or a selection of 3,339 people who downloaded the album? So again, it's asking us about a sample here, right? So we know that that's not everybody. So it couldn't be this one. Obviously, that's not going to apply because it doesn't have anything to do with, they wouldn't even know about the songs, right? And then 250 girls who downloaded the album, that would be very specific. So I would say it's this one, a selection of 3,349 people who downloaded the album. So question 38, solve for x. So this one we're going to do, again, the cube root of x minus 8 equals 2. We're going to cube both sides. So that cancels that out. So that leaves us with x minus 8 equals, that's 8. And then we're going to add 8 to both sides. So that's x equals 16. So that was this one. 39 says find the intercepts for the following function. So once again, I would be using Desmos for this if I didn't know how to do this, but I can show you how to do this because this function is actually 1 and then 2 to the x power. So there was not a number there, but I know the number that was there was 1. Now again, you can put this on in your Desmos and you'll see that if I put 0 in here, right? If I put 0 right there, that's going to be 1 times 1, right? Which is 1. So that's where my intercept is, right there. Right there's my intercept. And so here's my graph. This is a growth function. Again, how do I know that? Because this was greater than what? 1. If it was smaller, it would be a decay function. And what was that intercept? It was 0, 1 right there. Mr. Winking wants to know how much his students for the year improved from the pre-test to the post-test on benchmarks. Which data collection method should he use? So let's talk about what these are. An experiment requires a control group. An observational study is you're looking at before and after data. A census is everybody being surveyed, and a survey is a portion of the people. So he did do everybody that he was teaching, but if we look at before and after, I would say it's an observational study here, okay? So question 41 says, 100 students out of 2,000 at a school have been surveyed. The results are recorded in each problem below. Predict the number of students in the population that would answer similarly. 50 said they would ride the bus to school. So we had 100 students that were surveyed. Out of those 100, 50 said that they ride the bus. Then we want to know how many would that predict would be riding the bus out of the 2,000 students, right? So this we're going to cross multiply. So this is going to be 100x equals 50 times 2,000, and then solve that, okay? Remember, we're cross multiplying here, right? But I know that 50 is half of 200, so the answer is going to be 1,000, because why? 1,000 is half of 2,000. In a survey of 20 sophomores at a high school, 12 students said they prefer a class field trip to an amusement park rather than a museum. The sophomore class had 150 students. Predict the number of sophomores that would prefer a class trip to an amusement park. So again, we have 20 sophomores surveyed. 12 said they would rather go to the amusement park, and there were 150 total sophomores, and we want to know how many of those would choose. So once again, we're going to cross multiply. So this is going to be 20x equals 12 times 150. Multiply that, then divide by 20. The answer was 90. So for this question, once again, we're going to use our calculators. We're going to go to Stat. We're going to go click on 1, and then L1 is where we're going to put all those numbers, okay? Then we're going to click Stat again, and we're going to click Calc and 1 again, okay? And enter, enter, enter. This is going to then tell you literally what the min is, the Q1, the medium, the Q3, and the max, okay? And when I did that, I got that answer right there. So on this one, it says match the term with this definition. So I'm just going to write the terms up here. So it says survey members are randomly chosen from the population that is first divided into groups, then members are randomly chosen from each group. So they're divided into groups, and then members are chosen randomly from each group. So this is going to be stratified, y'all. The next one says survey members are chosen using a pattern, such as selecting. So this is systematic. Survey members are randomly chosen from the population that is first divided into groups. Then a sample of the groups is randomly chosen, and then all the members of the group are surveyed. This is cluster. Difference between stratified and cluster, y'all, is they're both broken up into groups. With stratified, some people from every group are surveyed, whereas with cluster, only one group is surveyed. The next one says sample when a group of people in a survey is under or overrepresented. This is a biased sample, so I'm just going to write biased here. Survey members volunteer to participate. This is self-selected. Survey members are chosen using a method that gives everyone an equally likely chance of being selected. This would be simple random. Part of the population is surveyed. So this is going to be a sample, right? The entire group of people or objects that you want information about. This is your population. Survey of an entire population is a census. Survey members are chosen because they are easily accessible. This is a convenience survey. A number that describes a population is a parameter. And then a number that describes a sample is a statistic. And the way I keep these straight, guys, is you got the parameter, population, right? Statistic, sample, okay? All right, so this next one says, given the 5 summary statistics of a data set, use the formula Q1 minus 1.5 times IQR and plus. This would be both. So when you're looking for this, you're going to do Q1 minus 1.5 times the IQR, and you're going to do Q3. Q3 minus 1.5 times the IQR. So remember, the IQR means we're going to subtract Q1 from Q3, right? That's the IQR. So we're going to take the 50 and we're going to subtract 26 from it. That's going to give us 24. Then this 1.5 times that IQR would be 1.5 times 24, which is going to be equal to 36, okay? So then we're going to take our Q1, which is 26, and we're going to subtract 36 from that. So that's going to give us negative 10. And then we're also going to take our 50, and we're going to add the 36 to that. That's going to give us 86. So that's not 1, that's not 1, that's not 1. So obviously there is no outlier, right? So these are the boundaries right here, guys, for our outlier. 48 says find the inverse of the function. So on this one, we are going to again write the function y equals 6 to the x minus 7. We're going to swap the x and y. So this is going to be x equals 6 to the y minus 7. Now we're going to put it in logarithmic form. So we're going to take our base here, log base 6 of what's on the other side of the equal sign, and that equals y minus 7. Now we're going to add the 7 to both sides. So this is going to be log base 6 of x plus 7, that's going to be equal to y. So that's this one. Number 49 says, which survey question has the most bias? Number 1 says, in your opinion, what is the most important meal of the day? Explain your reasoning. I don't see any bias in that question. Which foods, if any, do you eat that you think might be considered junk food? Now remember, what does bias mean? Is something over or underrepresented, okay? I don't think that B is either. Would you help a stranger with a broken down car by giving them a ride to your... I don't think that's biased either. Would you like to improve schools by increasing funding for private schools? Now, I think this one's going to be biased because if you go to you have kids go to a private school, then you obviously think that increasing funding would be better for them. And if they didn't, then you wouldn't. Okay. So I would say this one's biased because of the private school segment of the population. Question 50 says, solve the equation. So this one's going to be 4 to the x minus 1 equals 6. So what I'm going to do with this is put this in logarithmic form. So this is going to be log of base 4 of 6 equals x minus 1. I'm going to use the change of base formula. I'm going to say log of 6 divided by log of 4, and that equals x minus 1. So when I did this, let me pull this up. Number 50. Where's 50? I got, for this one, I got 1.29 equals x minus 1. So then I'm add 1 to both sides. So that's going to give me that x equals 2.29. Or actually, I guess it was 292. So this is what it was. That was the right answer right there. '51 says, Miss Scott, the principal of Phoenix High School, was conducting a survey about students' impressions of the virtual student days and decided to ask 10 random students from each of the 5 periods for the day, which type of sampling did she employ? So on this one, this is a stratified. Why? Because she chose 10 from each of the 5 periods, okay? So that's stratified. Got it? Find the inverse of the function. So here again, we're going to swap the x and y. So this can be log base 3 of x minus 2. So we're going to say x equals here, log base 3 of y. Maybe, if it's going to write for me. Minus 2. So let's add 2 to both sides. So that's going to be x plus 2 equals log base 3 of y. And then we're going to put it in exponential form, right? So this is going to be 3 to the x plus 2 equals y. So 3 to the x plus 2 is that one. Okay? Find the ratio given the sequence. So what we're doing with this one is we're taking our second term and we're dividing it by our first term. Now these are the Unit 12 questions, okay guys? So we're going to do 32 and divide it by negative 64. So that's actually going to be negative 1/2. That's our ratio. Number 54 says find A1 when we are given the ratio of 4/5 and A10 is 134.22. So when I do this one, I'm going to say A to the 10th equals A to the first times what? Our ratio, which is 4/5, to the 10 minus 1. So I'm going to put the A to the 10th over here. So that's going to be 134.22, and that's equal to A to the first. And we're going to do our 4/5 to the 9th power, right? So when we do that, I got a decimal, which was, I'm trying to remember if I wrote this down, y'all. I don't think I did. I just divided that number then into 134, and I guess it was probably 0.013422. That's what I'm thinking, because when I divided it into the 134, I got that A1 was equal to 1,000. Okay? So the next one says, given that f of x equals 4 x plus 2 minus 3, what are the interval of increase and decrease? So on this one, I know that this graph is going to open up like this, right? And, sorry, let me redo that. It's going to have a vertex of -2, -3. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. It's going to have a vertex down here, and it's got a slope of 4. So it would be going up like 1 over 1 right there. So it's going to be something like this, right? So when we're talking about our interval of decrease, we got an interval of decrease from the left, don't we? So the interval of decrease is going to be from -infinity over here to what value is that right there? -2. So let's talk about increase and decrease, okay? So decrease is going to be from -infinity to -2, which means our increase is going to be from -2 onto infinity, right? Because infinity is over here. 56 says find the sum of the first 20 terms when r is equal to -2 and a1 is equal to 5. So this formula is different, okay? So this sum of n is equal to a1 times 1 minus r to the n power divided by 1 minus r, okay? So we're going to now populate that formula, and we're going to say the sum of the first 10 terms is equal to r5 times 1 minus a -2 to the what? The 10th power, okay? And then we're going to divide that by 1 minus a -2. So when I do this problem, excuse me, I'm going to get 5 times 1. I don't think I wrote down the number, y'all, what that was. I think it was minus 5,116, okay? Divided by, isn't that going to end up being 3 down there? So, no, actually it couldn't have been that. The total number, sorry, that's not right, y'all. I didn't write the parts on here on my paper. So basically when I do that on top, I'm going to tell you I get on top, I got -5,115, and then I divided that by 3. So my actual answer is -1705 for this problem, okay? So -1705, all right, is the sum of all those 20 terms. So this one says find the infinite sum. So that is a different formula. So that when we do this one, it's going to be a1 divided by 1 minus r. So they give us a1, which is 3, and they give us the ratio, which is 1 minus 1/2, while 3 divided by 1/2 is 6. Number 58 says, given that f of x is equal to -6x plus 1 plus 4, or the absolute value of x plus 1 plus 4, state the transformations, intercept zeros, write the piecewise function. Okay, so on this one, our transformations. So we know this reflects over the x-axis because a is negative, okay? That's a right there. And we also know what? That it is a vertical stretch by what? 6, okay? Then we've got this, so that means it moves left 1, because that's really a -1, right? And then up 4, okay? That's what all those things mean. And then the intercepts, okay? So if I was to look at the graph of this, or if I was to graph this, then this is going to be -1 over here, and then up 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? And then it's got a slope of 6, so I'm going to go down for 1, 2, 1 more, and they're right there. So this is about what my graph's going to look like, y'all. Something like that, okay? Not quite, but sort of. It opened down because it was negative, okay? So I can solve for my intercepts, if you remember, by putting 0 in for y. So I can say -6, and then I can do x plus 1, absolute value plus 4. So I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. So that's going to leave me with x plus 1 here. And then I'm going to divide by -6. So that's going to give me, what is that actually? 2/3 equals the absolute value of x plus 1. Okay, so now listen. When we do this, remember, we're going to solve for a 2/3 and a -2/3. So here we're going to subtract 1, right? So that's going to give us a -1/3 is equal to x. So that's going to be what? For our intercept, that's going to be -1/3, 0. That's one of them. And then over here, we're going to subtract. So that's going to be -1. So that's going to be -1 2/3, which we could say is -5/3, or we can say -1 2/3. So I'm just going to say it's -5/3, comma 0. That's another one. Now, how we solve for the other one? Y'all remember? So the y-intercept, we're going to put 0 in for x, okay? So we're going to say y equals, and we're going to say, whoops, sorry. Let me put the -6 there. This one's going to be -6 times 0 plus 1 plus 4, okay? So that's going to be -6 times 1, because the absolute value of 1 is 1. So that's 1 plus 4, right? So that's going to be -6 plus 4, which is going to be -2, which means it would have been down here, y'all, at -2. If I'd actually looked at the graph, I could have seen that. So this one is going to be at 0, -2. So those are my intercepts right here, these three right here, okay? And then our zeros, remember, are going to be the x-intercepts. So our zeros are going to be x equals -1/3 and x equals -5/3, okay? Then I want to talk to you about the piecewise function, okay? So for the piecewise function, what we're going to do is we're going to say f of x equals, all right? So we want to talk about this left side of the graph and the right side of the graph, okay? So on the left side, it's rising from left to right, right? So we're going to say it's 6x. And again, if we wanted to find the slope, right? So we could, excuse me, we could take this point right here and put it into the equation and solve for it. But we can also go up 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And remember, this was at 6. This was at 4 right here, right? So if we add 6 to 4, that's 10. So this is going to be plus 10. If what? X is less than or equal to, what value of x do we have? -1, right? Okay. Then the one on the right is going to be a -6x. Now this one we just talked about. It intercepted right there, right? So that's going to be -2 if x is greater than -1. Now listen. This one could be equal and this one could not have the equal there. It doesn't matter which way you do it, but only one of them can have the equal, okay? Doesn't matter which one, but only one of them can, all right? So I'm going to go back and put it on this top one. All right, so let's move on to the next. That was the piecewise function. All right, so find the 10th term when the ratio is 3 and our first term is 7. That's what this is about. So we're going to use our formula. A to the 10 is equal to 7. That's our first term. And then our ratio is 3, and we're going to do 10 minus 1, right? So that's going to be 7 times 3 to the 9th, which is going to equal, what did I get for this? Did I do this problem? 59. Oh yeah, it's a big number. 137,781. All right, the next one says evaluate the piecewise function. So when we're looking at this, it says x is equal to -5. So do y'all see that equal right there? So we're going to put that -5 in this function. Okay, so it's going to be -5 plus 14. Well, that's 9. So the square root of 9 is equal to 3. So when we evaluate it, you want to put it in the one that has the equal to if there's two of them where it could go in, okay? Then what is the recursive formula when the ratio is 1? Now remember, the recursive formula is when we're asking for the next term. So this is going to have our ratio times a to the n minus 1, which really means the previous term, okay? So this is going to be basically 1/2 times a to the n minus 1. N minus 1 just means the previous term. So if I multiply 1/2 times the previous term, I'm going to get the next term, okay? All right, last problem, y'all. Write the step function for the graph. So step functions are going to be f of x equals, so down here we're at -4. If x is between, that looks like, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, -7. And right here we've got 3, -3. We got an open dot on the left, so that's going to be a less than symbol. And on the right is going to be a less than equal to symbol. Our next one is up here. And this one is at 1. And this one is if, and again, that was at -3. And this one over here is at 6. So again, our left thing is an open dot, and the right one is a closed dot, so it's going to have the equal sign under it. And then our last one is this one up here, and this one looks like it's at 6. And it's going to be if, and again, we've got right here from 6, and that's going to be less than because it's open dot on the left, and then closed because it's a closed dot on the right to 10, okay? And this one actually has two sides to it. It's not like the piecewise, okay? All right, I hope that helps y'all. Good luck on the final, guys.